Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are. Whenever it is for you, for me, it is just past midnight on Friday, September the 19th, which makes this the news and events for Thursday, the 18th of September, 2025, day 1303 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, coming to you from this major European capital, currently under siege. I see the peeps are coming in. Hey, Carl. Hey, Nicola. There's Seawolf. Everybody thanks Seawolf and Nutmegger, who are the sponsors of tonight's live. I feel a little bit, Seawolf, tell me if, I hope this is not offensive, but I almost feel like Nutmegger is like our mascot. You know, I don't know him, but I feel, I don't know, an affection for this child I have never met. And it's undoubtedly because of you, of course. Hey, Nightshade. Hey, Kiwi Annie. Anthony, Tommy Time, Tom, Mad Mike. Thanks, Mad Mike. Hey, G2. Hey, Richard Prexis. There's someone in the chat called Kill Putin. Great handle, Swedish chef there. This is not a contest, Nightshade. Hey, Kijo. Hey, Mike Kelly. Hey, Feisty. Hey, Bernard. Doing okay, pal. Hey, Feisty. Hey, Derek Sands. Hey, Jackie. Hey, Bjorn. Hey, Scotty. How's everybody doing? Oh, I love nutmeg on my eggnog or my warm milk before bed. Hey, Akron. Hey, Ted Greenow. Hey, Mike Now. Hey, Marius, Refurb Man. Arna. There's Arna. Thanks to Arna. Sorry. Yeah, Seawolf. Unfortunately, he's back in mine. Hey, Daryl Roberts. Hey, Alice. Lil Red. Hey, Weebo. What'd you think about that, Nightshade? Hey, Tommy Weber. I am definitely expecting some trolls in here tonight, guys. So let's be alert for their presence. Kijo, the question of the Druzhba pipeline, like all of the questions around the energy infrastructure inside Russia, is uncertain. Because here's the thing, while Druzhba itself may have been hit, there are alternate routes that they can take, right? The infrastructure inside Russia is extraordinarily extensive. It's a big place with lots of redundancies. And so the idea that just hitting Druzhba is going to shut down all of those oil exports is not accurate. It'll interfere with them. It will cause delays. It will slow things down. It might even stop them temporarily. So the short answer to your question is I don't know. The situation is fluid and evolving. Hey, Andreas, are you back yet? Are you in town? Hey, Tina. Hey, Jasmine. Hey, Blue Ariel Silk. Nice to see you. Hey, Ed. Okay, so let's start there then, right, with this question of oil infrastructure. Actually, let's do that second real quick because I see a lot of Americans and Canadians are here already, as well as some of our friends from Europe. But it's the Americans and Canadians I just want to mention this aside to. Now, for those of us following the news from the United States, freedom of speech is really under pressure. And we saw that with the firing of Jimmy Kimmel this week. Now, if you are an American or if you are in a market where Disney Plus, the streaming service, is available to you, you can cancel. You can cancel. It's a capitalist. It's still a capitalist country. We're not fascist yet. You can still vote with your money. Little Red has already canceled Hulu and Disney. You want to add to that HBO Max. So the Disney Plus family of companies is owned by, I think, Capital Cities, who also owns ABC. And that may be true. I'm not a sports fan. I don't know about ESPN. Are they owned by them as well? Could be. The point is this, guys. For anybody who wants to vote with your wallet, cancel those streaming services. I did it tonight. And it hurts me, I got to tell you, because I'm a big fan of Peacemaker, and I'm going to miss the last 3 episodes of this season. And that is disappointing to me. But you know what? That's okay. It is a small price to pay for being able to check the box when asked why I'm canceling, be able to check the box other and say, because you caved to our fascist wannabe dictator boss and fired Jimmy Kimmel, accelerating our slide into fascism at the expense of our sacred right of free speech. Oh no, is Netflix owned by them too? Or no, you mean change to Netflix. Yeah, okay. Thank God. I didn't want to lose. I gotta tell you, I didn't want to lose Netflix too. Okay, so that's an aside. But look, let's be clear. The United States is rapidly accelerating its slide into fascism. And there is something we can do about it. We can control how we respond to it. It's easy to be angry. And God knows I am angry about it all the time. But we don't have to like it. And we don't have to shut up about it. And we can always vote with our wallets. And I would encourage everybody to examine your own conscience on this and see whether or not you can live without Disney Plus. I know I can. Now, for everybody else, let's go back to the question of oil infrastructure inside of Russia. It's getting bad, boy. Boy, is it getting bad. There are now lines for gasoline in Nizhny Novgorod, which is an oblast adjacent to Moscow. We're seeing no A95 in Moscow. Last night, Sandra Scholl says silence is compliance. I could not agree more. That is a great way to put it, Sandra. I agree. Now, last night we saw 2 additional oil refineries hit. That brings a total of 14? Yes, 13 and 14 last night. Strikes. No, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. Last night was 15, 16. 16 hits against oil refineries in 48 days. And Russia's feeling the effects. We're not only seeing an export ban. There isn't enough refined oil products to export. There isn't enough refined oil products in the country for the country's needs. So we're seeing coupons, rationing, long lines, if there's even any gas at all. This is actually leading to bankruptcies, or the threat of bankruptcies at any rate, of smaller gas stations. The smaller gas stations who cannot afford the exorbitant, ever-rising wholesale costs of gasoline are starting to go broke. So we're seeing the knock-on effects throughout the economy. But that is not all. There's also the repairs. Now, look, according to oil industry experts, virtually all of the hits against oil infrastructure will be repaired in the next 2 weeks or so. They'll be back to 100% refining capacity in maybe as few as 2 weeks. Now, so what does Ukraine keep doing? Well, one of the attacks we saw last night was against Volgograd. The refinery in Volgograd has been hit 5 times this year. Last night was the 5th strike against them. And so we're seeing the Ukrainians go back to the well to make sure that those repairs take longer than the current estimates give them. Additionally, there is the knock-on effect of the refineries being unable to do their own retooling, their seasonal retooling, so that they can produce winter-grade fuels. Now, that's a real problem in Russia. You got half the country that if they don't have winter-grade fuels in January, they're not leaving the house. Not until March or April anyway. That's a problem. That's a problem. Then you got what happened up in Primorsk, where they hit the export oil infrastructure, the pumping station, costing them for the couple days that was shut down about $41 million a day, over $120 million in the end on that one hit. The reality is that when we think about the end of World War II, right, what was it that finally brought the German war machine to its knees? They didn't have fuel for the tanks. They didn't have fuel for the trucks. An army runs on its belly and its wheels with no food, no medicine, no fuel. The army stops. And now that brings us, okay, Anonymous says, is Russia advancing in the Zaporizhia direction? That brings us to what's happening on the front line. Down in Zaporizhia, for example, we see the Russian forces penetrating from Zaporizhia into Dnipropetrovsk. Right now, there's an incursion about 6 kilometers into Dnipropetrovsk. It's another one of these small infiltration group situations where small groups have gotten behind the lines and then popped up. And when enough of them manage to get through, they pop up and they attack any Ukrainians in the area. This method is being dismantled all up and down the front line. It does not work. And we're going to see the same thing happen in Dnipropetrovsk. That salient is going to be clipped off, removed from the main body of Russian forces, and then they will be sliced and diced until there is nothing left of them. We are seeing that exact same thing. Now, I don't know what the Russian bots are talking about today, but from early this morning, I was being teased on my page. Why aren't you talking about what's happening in Pokrovsk? Why aren't you talking about Pokrovsk? And I couldn't figure it out because, to the best of my knowledge, all that's happened in Pokrovsk is that the Russians brought the 810th Naval Infantry Brigade, or units of it anyway, Russian Marines, right, that had been fighting in Sumy. They pulled them out of Sumy, or Kursk, and brought them down to reinforce the line in Pokrovsk, which is being dismantled, by the way. Now they've sent in the Brazilian units of the International Legion, and the Brazilians are just carving their way through the surrounded pockets of Russian troops. Zelensky was on the air tonight, and in his address, he said that the boys there are doing a great job, that they have liberated 7 settlements, they have cleaned the Russians out of another 9. Russian casualty figures in the area over the last couple weeks are in the thousands. And we see it on the maps, right? We've seen all those northern pockets that were surrounded, eliminated, completely cleaned out, eliminated. Then that smaller pocket to the south, that's been halved in size. And then that big salient has been nipped right off from the main force of Russians. And I think the 810th Naval Brigade is in there because there's a whole lot of new soldiery in there, according to the maps. It looks like the Russians brought a bunch of troops down to Pokrovsk in the Dobropilla direction and are trying to repel the Ukrainians and are failing. Despite what was reported in Sky News today, the Sky News report looks like the exact opposite of what's actually happening on the battlefield. Though I cannot say for sure, right? The fog of war is thick right now. And over the next couple weeks, we're going to know whether the Russians are able to take Pokrovsk or whether the Ukrainian counteroffensive is going to drive them back. I've been talking about the Ukrainians retaking 40 square kilometers in that region. Tonight, on his address to the nation, Zelensky said that the Ukrainian armed forces have recovered 150 square kilometers. Right? Like 4 times what I thought they had. If that's the case, then what we're seeing happen up in Sumy could well be happening in Pokrovsk next. And what we're seeing up in Sumy is, I don't want to use the word rout, but the Russians are in full retreat where they can. There is a pocket of Russian resistance that is surrounded, or nearly surrounded, threatened to be cut off and put in the cauldron. It is funny to me, or not funny, funny's the wrong word. It's ironic, isn't it? You think about what Vladimir Putin threatened us all with at the beginning of this war, the 3 Fs, right? Remember, does anybody remember my 3 Fs? What Putin kept threatening us with? He threatened us with fuel. He would cut off the fuel to Europe and we would all freeze. Hey, Betty Thompson. He threatened food. He would burn the fields in Ukraine. He would blow up the food shipments out of the country and there would be famine in the world. And then finally, he threatened us with fire. Nuclear fire, fission. There it is, Raven. Raven remembers. Nice. Thanks, pal. Famine, fuel, and fission. That's what he threatened us with. Look what's happening in Russia. No fuel, and winter's approaching. The harvest, by all accounts, is going to be a record disaster. Wheat harvest in Krasnodar Krai alone is projected to be down 60% of normal. A food insecure Russia with no fuel is not a Russia that can continue this war. It's like Ukraine is rubber and Russia's glue, and everything that they say bounces off of us and sticks to you. He wanted a regime change in Kyiv. It looks like the regime change is coming in the Kremlin. Increasingly, we're hearing rumors of plots to assassinate Putin or to overthrow the government. I don't know if these are the kind of people that panic, Little Red. I really don't know if they are the kind of people. They're so insulated. They believe things that no one could believe that understands the world we're living in. And there is a reckoning coming, a cognitive dissonance between the reality on the outside and what's happening inside. Oh gosh, I forget his name. What's his name? Like Three Wagons, or he goes by something like that. He's a Russian mill blogger. And I don't pay much attention to these people. Except today, this guy went on a rant about how the Kremlin is destroying Russia. That they've used up all of their resources in this insane, protracted war. And he's right. He was echoing the sentiments of Igor Girkin, one of Russia's great generals. I hate to put it that way. That's the wrong way to put it. One of Russia's most effective generals, who, because he's effective, is now locked up in jail in a Russian prison because Putin can't have anybody around that threatens him as the great leader, the genius that runs it all, the only man whose opinion matters. This kind of thinking, this cult worship of these narcissistic nightmares is the path to self-destruction. And it breaks my heart every day to watch the United States on that very path. Large earthquake just hit off Russia. Massive tsunami expected to hit Russia. Awesome. Maybe that will finally knock the leg out of the Russian nuclear triad of the nuclear submarines out in Vladivostok, or not Vladivostok, but Kamchatka, on the Kamchatka Peninsula. Now, look, we don't know Feisty, right? John just came in here and said this. He might be looking at a TikTok from 3 weeks ago when it actually did happen. Why is Trump so pro-Russian or sympathetic to Russia? Because he wants to be Russia. He wants to remake the United States into the Russia of America. He wants to be the absolute ruler. He wants to be able to execute people. He wants to be the only, him and his friends, he wants them to be the only ones with any money. He wants to bankrupt America. Look at his economic policies and what they're doing to the value of the dollar. This is right out of the Russian playbook. It is exactly what the Russian oligarchs did at the end of the Soviet Union to enrich themselves and bankrupt the country. 7.8 quake, really? I am in Kyiv, Sophia. What would happen if Donald Trump gave Putin sanctuary in America? That's never going to happen. Because it's never going to happen because the Russian people will tear Vladimir Putin apart before they'll let him escape the country. So you can forget that. That's not a thing that's going to happen. Now, where was I going with this? Can somebody get me back on track? What the hell are we talking about? Quick search confirms the Russian earthquake. Cool. How much money do you need at their age, Peter? Well, Paul, these guys want to live to be 150. I mean, how much money do you need to live to 150? Ugh. He stopped the war in Azerbaijan and Albania. Honest to God. Well, Sarah, these guys are saying that there was another quake. A 7.8. Sophia, I do need a nap. I'll tell you why. Russia's definitely running out of equipment, yeah. And it's not unusual for earthquakes to come one after another, right? Because what's happening is tectonic activity. The Eurasian plate is subducting the Pacific plate. And so as this plate gets pushed down, forced down into the mantle, the rock becomes superheated and liquid, right? And eventually it breaks off and the top plate snaps back up, and that causes the earthquake. So if that's happening, it's likely that you'll see one or two happen back to back, basically. So at any rate, last night I got about 2.5 hours of sleep. And I got about 2.5 hours of sleep last night because I needed to be up at 7:30 this morning, which is very unusual for me. But I had the great good fortune of attending the Brand Ukraine International Conference today here in Kyiv. And I did a couple videos from there because we were at the Motherland Monument. We were at the World War II Museum here in Kyiv. And the World War II Museum in Kyiv is very different from the Russian history of World War II. The Russians teach their children that basically World War II was just them. It wasn't even called World War II. It was called the Great Patriotic War. The Great Patriotic War. They rebranded World War II so that they could instill in the youth of Russia a nationalistic pride that would ensure that generations of Russians would be happy to sacrifice themselves for a dear leader in the Kremlin. There's no mention in Russian textbooks about the Allied and American contributions to the war effort. There's no mention in the Russian textbooks about America sending food or lend-lease to Russia to support them through the war. The Soviets, I should say the Soviets through the war. In fact, there's no mention in Russian textbooks today about the rest of the Soviet contributions to World War II. They won. Russia won. That is not the way that history is taught in Ukraine. In Ukraine, the same kind of vision of World War II that we all have in the West is the vision that the Ukrainians have. Only for them, it's far more horrific and far more complicated because they were subjected to the gentle mercies of both Mustache Man and Stalin. This rewriting of history is exactly what Donald Trump is trying to do in the United States. The Smithsonian can't talk about the evils of slavery anymore. Women's contributions to the armed services have been removed from the historical timeline of the United States Armed Services. The same is true of Black and other ethnic minorities' contributions to the timeline. It is a fool's errand, right? Oh, please don't get me started on Stephen Miller. He is just the most evil son of a bitch. And so one of the things, so get this, because this was one of the things that I learned today. And I'm going to do a video just as soon as I get the PowerPoint from Fernando. But this guy, Fernando, and his business partner, Natalia, were in town from Panama. Now, these guys have a research firm that does analysis of country reputations, right? So national reputations in the world. And the funniest thing has to be in the lowest possible spot for international reputation. Can you guess? Mother Russia, number 60 on the chart, right? Nobody has a good opinion of Russia. Except they also poll the people inside the country. And guess who has the best reputation in the world? According to Russians, Russia. The cognitive dissonance, the self-imposed lies, fantasies, and delusions writ large for the world to see in this analysis from this reputation firm out of Panama. I mean, just the Russian people just gave themselves glowing reviews while the rest of the world trashed them. Of course, we did, right? They're committing genocide and have brought the largest land war in Europe to Europe since World War II. I learned a lot today, and I'm trying to process it. I'm trying to get the transcripts and the PowerPoints from today. And there'll be a series of videos coming out about today. One of the things that struck me today, one of the things that I would share with all of you, is that there is, now you know, right? Everybody here knows. I tell people, you should not come to this country as a tourist right now. And they talked a lot about that today, that this country should be experiencing far more tourism than it is, but it can't because of the war. And I'm totally down with that, right? Nobody should come to this country as a tourist. But I have never said nobody should come to this country right now. If you have skills, especially if you have medical skills, if you have military skills, if you're a driver, there's a great need for transport, logistics, drivers that are willing to drive to the front. Definitely don't go to Russia as a tourist, right? You'll be taken hostage. However, if you are inclined to try to be helpful to these people at this critical time, then by all means, make a plan, put your skills to work, get sponsored by an NGO, and come here and do some good if you can, if you're a person who can. The other thing I think that really struck me today, I don't disagree with you, Kiwi Annie. Smokey, it all depends on if you go to united24.gov.ua. Can somebody type that in the chat and pin it, please? Are any of the... Feisty, you're a moderator, right? Can you do that for me, please? united24.gov.ua. There you will find tons of volunteer opportunities, right? Maybe you're a cook. Maybe you could apply to work with World Central Kitchen. There's a million things you could do, whatever, right? Like I have no skills at all, except the English language. And for that, thank you, Richard Prexis. Thank you, Feisty. And there's a great need here for people who can help Ukrainians speak English. And so that's one of the things that I try to do, right? The other thing is business investment. People are saying, oh, Ukraine will be great to invest in after the war. Thanks, Bip. Wait a minute. Were you in my TechNet sessions? Did we talk about this? Do you remember that? That's a while ago now. Right, Chef Deb? Right? I feel you. Waiting until after the war to invest at Convergence in Atlanta. Get the hell out of here. That must have been in the early 2000s. Huh. Dude, were you at the reception at the aquarium? That was one of my... Get the hell out of here. Oh, I forgot about that, Bip. So Bip is alluding to the fact, guys, I used to work for the Microsoft Corporation. I was the IT pro evangelist for the Microsoft's Mid-Atlantic region. And I also did the Unified Communications launch. That was in Atlanta, or one of the cities was Atlanta. I don't know what USCIS is. Appalachian Hiker. What is that? So look, guys, everybody has to do their own research. You have to find the NGO that wants you and that you want to work with. And it's not easy. Let me tell you, I must have applied to 60 when I first wanted to come over here. Until I finally found a place that was a good fit for me. And we did a bunch of good work together. And then I just stayed. Anyway. Bip, thanks for reminding me of that, boy. It's a long time ago, man. Anyway. J-Boy used to work for Microsoft, yeah? Okay, so the other thing is investment in Ukraine. A lot of people say, oh, after the war, I'm going to invest in Ukraine. That's too late. It's going to be too late. If you're serious and if you're a person with any financial means, you should be looking for opportunities now. Because if you wait until after, Russia's being brought to its knees. They are not going to be able to keep this up. I'm convinced of it. And it's not just that the Russians are getting exhausted. The Ukrainians are making advances, making strides, building momentum, securing the skies, creating a world in which only Ukraine can fly here, developing the air superiority capabilities, which they should never have been able to do. Should never have been able to do. Then you've got serial and mass production of their missiles coming, both ballistic and cruise missiles. That's going to change things. And then you have people like Hamish de Bretton Gordon, who is an analyst that I follow closely. And for the last 10 days or so, Hamish de Bretton Gordon has been repeating the same words over and over and over again. I believe the Russian army has culminated, which means they're done. They're out of energy. They can't move forward. Thanks, Pip. Now, again, this is not my analysis. This is Hamish de Bretton Gordon. And he's a person to listen to. Now, if he's right, I think we're going to see it in Pokrovsk. And then we'll see it all up and down the line. Because Pokrovsk is where the greatest concentration of troops is. It's where the greatest effort to move forward has been. The Ukrainians are saying that today, every meter forward for the Russians in Pokrovsk is costing them 100 men. 100 men for a yard. That's insanity. And it can't continue. Nightshade published a great video today. Hang on to that thought, Mike Kelly. I'll do that next. Nightshade published a great video today. It was a interview with a recent Russian POW. Listen to what this guy is saying. He is the poster child. He is the poster child for how the Russian army is suffering today. Worse than Bakhmut? Yeah, way worse. Way worse. Ukrainian estimates are that the Russians have lost 60,000 men trying to take Pokrovsk. That's like double what they lost trying to take Bakhmut. Bakhmut, it took, I want to say 8 months, if I remember right. They've been working on Pokrovsk for 26 months. It's insanity. And meanwhile, they are hollowing out the rest of the front, moving men into Pokrovsk. First, it was all the reserves in Crimea. Then it was all the reserves in Kherson. Then it was some guys from Zaporizhia. Now it's Sumy and Kursk. Kursk, Russian territory. The Ukrainian advance around Tetkino is accelerating because the Russians are pulling everybody out of Kursk to try to get to the Donbass. Now, why do they want the Donbass so much? That's a great question. It's important to remember that Putin illegally annexed all of what he says, all of Luhansk, all of Donetsk, all of Zaporizhia, all of Kherson, even though he does not control all of those territories. He insists that because they are now integrated into the Russian Constitution, they are Russia. And he's got to have them. He is obsessed with at least that much. If he can't take all of Ukraine, he's at least going to get the goddamn territories that he's written into his own constitution at any cost. And then everybody else has answered the question of why those territories are so important. One of the world's largest and richest lithium mines is in Donetsk. It may be as much as 5% of the world's lithium. It's a very rich concentration. As much as 1% of the ore is lithium once refined. So that means that you have to refine 100 tons of ore to get 1 ton of lithium. That's a rich lithium deposit. I'm not so sure about oil, but off the coast in the Sea of Azov and in the territorial waters of Ukraine are some extremely rich proven gas reserves. And then some oil too. And clearly he wants his hands on that. Clearly. Ultimately, that's what this entire war is about. Those natural gas reserves were proven in 2012. He annexed Crimea in 2014, illegally, right? And started the Donbass war so that Ukraine couldn't threaten his gas monopoly to Europe. That's the bottom line in this whole thing. All his bullshit about protecting Russian speakers, all his bullshit about, Russian imperialism and restoring Soviet strength and all this nonsense is just an excuse for him to commit genocide so he can line his own pockets. And he clearly does not care who he takes out to do it or whose blood he has to spill to do it, including that of an entire generation of young Russians. A lot of very valuable farmland there as well. We've had reports that as we approach the beginning of the harvest season, the Russians are intentionally burning Ukrainian harvests. So they're firing shells and mortars into Ukrainian farmland and burning the harvest before the Ukrainians can bring it in. Raven, nobody really knows what's going on with Putin. We just don't know. Nobody knows. Okay. The Russians had agreed to lease Sevastopol for the Black Sea Fleet from Ukraine for like 100 years. They had like a 100-year lease. And I don't know the details, whether they paid in cash for that or whether they paid in gas. I don't know the answer. Yep, that's it, Colin. That's it. You're right, Drain Man. Europe will feed Ukraine, but who the fuck is going to feed Russia? Well, Nan, he makes sure that they don't live long enough to turn on him. That's reality. He does not want them to come home. He doesn't want 750,000 violent, angry Russians who know how to use weapons coming home to Russia. No way. Maybe the Chinese would feed Russia. I don't think they would, to be perfectly honest. I think the Chinese are much more interested in securing North Manchuria, Vladivostok, and Siberia. where they have invested billions in energy. Why feed Russia when you can just take the land and get all that energy very efficient, cost effectively, and let the Russians suffer? Might not be you, June. It might be me. We couldn't stream live from the event today. And I keep getting a notice that my network is unstable. We did have some strikes in the last drone attack on communications infrastructure in Kyiv. And so that could be it. Right. He takes out his own commanders. Right. Anybody who is popular with the troops, anybody who is effective on the battlefield, he cannot take the competition. I use a local internet service provider. Starlink's very expensive. And personally, I wouldn't want to put, because people have asked me, do you want a Starlink thing? And I don't want to put a dime in Elon Musk's pocket. So no, that is not a place anybody should spend money on me for. He doesn't want another Prigozhin. Exactly. And you know what happens when you dispatch, detain, or disappear everybody who could be that guy? You invariably create one. The Chinese and Russians still hate each other. This show that they put on in Beijing recently is just the pause before they stab each other in the back. That's what's going to happen in that relationship. Same with China and India. There's no love lost there. If anybody thinks China and India are friends, you are not paying attention. Okay, guys, it's about 10 to the top of the hour, so we're quickly running out of time here. So let me again thank Nutmegger and Seawolf, who are the sponsors of tonight's live. Thanks so much, guys. Let me thank Lars, who has the Discord server, Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces, as well as the moderator team. Best moderators on the Tickety Talk, Maddie, Feisty, Pete, Jay, and Travis. Thank you, guys. Hey, Laddie. Hey, there he is. Everybody Dragon's here. Say hello. What do you got? He brought me flowers. What a guy, huh?
No, not the flowers. It's a beer.
Ah, nice.
But winter, so it's hard one.
Oh, great. Pears from the orchard, nice.
But be careful. The dentist is very expensive.
Very expensive. And
Yeah.
I don't have that CIA dental plan.
And unfortunately, I didn't know what is the name of this berry.
Yeah. We don't have these. Hey, Arn, what are these called? Do you know? These little orange berries, they got them all over here. How do you eat them? Do you just eat them right off the thing?
Yeah, it's eatable. It should be a little bit
Tart?
but it's very delicious and it's very helpful and healthy. From the seams inside, it's produced oil, special kind of oil.
And you get oil out of the seeds.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. No, this is not a gooseberry. I don't know what this is. I'll figure it out.
But this oblipicha, it's really from Ukrainian. It's a oblipicha. Yeah.
Is this it here?
Yeah.
Thanks, Gravity.
Very helpful for stomach.
Good. Not lichen. You mean loganberries, Lola. But no, loganberries are red, aren't they? Is this sea buckthorn? Dude. Okay, interesting. I'm going to look that up. I don't do any crypto, Hutmus. Thank you. Just the PayPal. Yep.
Sea buckthorn.
Yeah. No, I never heard of that before I came here. That's brand new to me. Okay, I'll figure out what to do with them. Here it is, Nightshade. We believe that this is known in English as sea buckthorn.
Now I know the place where it's a lot of these trees, but
Yeah.
a little bit far away from Kyiv.
I feel like you should mash these and strain them to get the seeds out. Okay. All right, guys, you know what? I'm going to call it a night. Again, big thanks to Seawolf, who is the sponsor of tonight's live, and Nightmaker. Big thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server, Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces, and, of course, to the best moderator team on the Tickety Talk. You got anything to say?
Guys, thank you for everything, but I have to step out and go sleep because I have just a couple of hours for relax. See you and have a nice evening and quiet night and nice dreams and be healthy.
Thanks, pal. Good night. Good night, everybody. Take care.